to see the best in you.
Welcome. It's that time again. Tell a friend, tell enemy, tell your brother, your sister, mother, father, aunt, uncle, grandparents, and everybody that it is time for the KIMPOWERMENT radio show. We are live today. This is our 1 year anniversary. So a year ago today, first Sunday in March, I sat here for my first episode of the KIMPOWERMENT radio show. And my theme is equipping you for your spiritual journey. So I came on here solely with the intent to come on and encourage and let someone know that you can make it, you can do it, you can get through it, and with God's help, you are going to make it. And I want to also let you know that today's episode, this is my first time, and I figured I would do this for its second year that we're starting. I have a sponsor today, and I'm going to give that sponsor the shout out and let everybody know today's episode is actually sponsored by Minister Nicholas Farron of Worcester, Massachusetts. And he has he's just an amazing, mighty, and prolific young man. Very humble, but very powerful. Has a voice out there in Worcester and all over the country. I know he does things overseas as well. And he has a reggae gospel ministry. And he would like you to know that you can find him by searching N Farron, and that's capital N, capital F-E-A-R-O-N on YouTube. And then on Instagram, he is N Farron Music Official, all one word, on Instagram. So again, I want to give a big, huge shout out and thank you to my first sponsor. Actually, I'm sorry, this is my second sponsor. We had Minister Tracy Williams sponsored the first episode. So this is my second time having a show sponsored by Minister Nicholas Farron. So thank you so much, Nick. And please go ahead again and check him out. He has a fantastic reggae gospel ministry, and also he is a minister of the gospel as well. And so go ahead and check him out. So we're going to start off today. I tend to start off fast, and I will give you a punch, but I don't want to run out of steam or run out of wind. And I also would love to have the opportunity to speak with you. So those of you who I've talked to and those of you who I didn't have a chance to talk to, you can call in to this show at any time. Anytime you want to, please dial 617-282-0685. And we also have someone monitoring the YouTube, the Facebook, and also the website. So if you have any questions or comments or anything that you would like to say or any questions that you would like to ask, we will read them. We will try to get to them today, definitely. So go ahead again, but you can always call 617-282-0685. I'd also like to thank my I call them my pals, my brothers and sisters here at the station. So it's been my pleasure to have been on the air with Pastor Bruce Wall and the WPBG family here.
BPG.
See? I'm messing it up in my first year. WBPG. I always get tongue twisted with that. Here in the Boston Praise and Radio family. My brother here, Minister Franklin Hobbs, my sister Renee Wise, and also my brother Eric, who's not here today. They have become family to me, extended family throughout this year, and they have provided me such a source of encouragement. Their testimonies and the things that they've been through and the things that God has brought them through have really, really encouraged me and helped me to go on. And it's great to know that while I'm here, I come on every first Sunday, that they're here just to see their faces. It's just a huge, tremendous support to me. So again, I want to thank them for that. And some things that if I don't get to say, when you think of anniversaries, you think of celebrations. Usually when you think of an anniversary, it's not something sad. Sometimes people do choose to celebrate something that may have been sad, but most time the connotation of the word anniversary is usually something pretty exciting, and something's happening, and there's cheer, and there's joy and gladness, and it's something happy. So again, I'm super excited today to be able to say that it's a year later, and I'm sitting here, and I'm still with the WBPG family, and I'm loving it. So when you think of, again, a year, that's a long time. It's 12 months. Some people can't do anything for 1 year. They can't do anything for a week. They can't do anything for 1 day. Can't do anything for 1 hour, 1 minute, or 1 second. But God has graced me and allowed me to be here for an entire year, coming on, providing the most relevant information and discussion that I possibly can through the help of the Lord Jesus Christ. Some other things that we want to talk about today is the fact that last year when I came on, and we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show, but one thing that brought me here was God's prophecy to me in February of 2021 last year, when he spoke to me clearly and distinctly and told me that my book would be on the radio. And when he said that to me, spoke it to me, I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea how that was going to come to be, how any of that was going to happen, how any of that was going to come about. But it did. Within 27 days of that prophecy, I sat here last March, I believe it was March 7th last year on a Sunday, and I sat here and I was on this show, able to, again, equip you for your spiritual journey. And I want to encourage someone today and just let somebody know that, just because God told you something, he spoke something to you, you may not have shared it with anybody. You may not have told your closest friend. You may not have told your spouse, your pastor, or anybody, but God spoke something clearly to you. And you're wondering, when is it going to come to pass? When is it going to happen? Why does it look like the more I do, or the more I try to get closer to that dream or that goal that God showed me, that things seem to get worse? Or they say you take 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. But I want to continue to encourage you, those of you who are listening out there, those of you who may even view this broadcast months down the road, to know that God is with you. He is on your side. He sees, he hears, and he knows everything about you. He knows everything that's going on in your life. He knows the things that are about to happen. He knows the things that may not happen for you that you're assuming will happen. But I want to continue to encourage you today to remember that we are here. I'm here to encourage you on your spiritual journey. So the first thing, again, that God talked to me about was my book. I'm going to hold it up. I don't think I've held it up again since last year this time, but I'm going to go ahead and hold it up. It is 101 God-given Kimpowerments. And that too was a dream that God told me. He was very clear with me again and said that I was going to write a book. I had never thought about it. I wasn't doing anything towards writing a book. But the Lord told me that I would. And he actually told me in 2014. It lay dormant. I was kind of doing some things. I was going in different directions and different avenues. But it came to pass in the summer of 2019. And the Lord said to me that the book is already written. So I was concerned and I was worried about, well, how am I going to write this book? What is the book going to be about? Who's going to want to read it? What am I going to talk about? And I'm trying to think, I'm like, I don't consider myself a writer. And how am I going to write hundreds of pages? And I'm thinking of, this big, huge dictionary type book. And I'm saying, Lord, I don't see myself doing that. And the Lord said, I'm here to reassure you and to comfort you and let you know the book is already written. Once he said that, over the next few months, I was put in contact through a friend of a friend with a wonderful publishing company, and the Lord just directed everything, directed every step and every moment. And what he then told me was that all of the quotes and the things that the Lord had given me, over 400 quotes that the Lord had given me between 2012 and 2019, he said, that's why I told you the book is already written. And I began to compile, I began to, make a list of all of the quotes. I had already had like a coffee table picture book of some of the quotes. And so I took some of those, I took some of the ones, and each one of the quotes, as we go into it later in the show, you will see and you will begin to know some of my testimony. But it's not just my testimony, it's many people's testimonies. You can interpret any one of the quotes, any one of the 101 quotes, any way that you need to for the encouragement that you need at that time. And so that's how this ministry started. That's how this radio show started. So anyone out there, if you're not scared, if you're not driving, you're not doing anything else, I would love to hear from you. If you want to even talk about any of the past shows that have been on for the last year, how it encouraged you, how it helped you with your walk, how it ministered to you, I would love to hear from you. 617-282-0685, and I will always pause and stop if someone does call in. And so I wanted to let people know that also there's a special thing today. One of my callers today will receive a special gift from the KIMPOWERMENT radio show. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to call in and see. But one of my special guests, anybody that calls in, a special caller, that calls in, you will receive something from me in honor of the 1 year anniversary. And I'm just going to continue to be excited and keep that excitement in my voice and in my face and my expression, because I am truly, truly, really happy. And I also want to say that in 2017, I was a guest here on Minister Frank Hobbs, one of his editions on a Sunday night. I know it was October of 2017. Don't know the date, but never knew that 4 years later I would be sitting here doing a show of my own. So I want to also thank you for that, Frank. I appreciate it. I remember it. We had a great time, and I remember the feeling that I got being on the radio and talking to people and getting, testimonies out there, and the camaraderie and just the friendship that we have amongst the saints. So Amen. I remember that as well, and I loved it. So I'm going to do just kind of a recap of the last year. And I'm going to try and read. I penned down just my thoughts and just the shows, and we'll try to capture some of the things, some of the nuggets and the things that we've done over the past year. So in March of 2021, I've just told you about how, it was the first show. I came on 27 days after the Lord prophesied to me that I would even be on the radio. And we just, we talked about my book, because that's what he said. Your book will be on the radio. And that's all he said. And it happened. So that was the first episode. Then we went on to the spring and the summer, and we had a Mother's Day edition with my mom. We had a Father's Day edition with my dad. And we got into some really, really heavy, deep, intrusive topics. And when I say that, it brought something out in people. I remember we had a lot of callers calling in, and we talked about the relationships that children have with their father versus the relationship children may have with their mother. We talked about the absenteeism of black fathers within black families, disproportionately them not being there, and the effects that had. And it definitely was not all negative. We also talked about, the positive aspects of maybe it's not the father, but maybe it's a black male that it's in the child's life as a godparent, as an uncle, as a big brother, or, a foster parent. We talked about how important those relationships are and how they're actually mirrored and echoed within the church. You have the church mothers. This is what we talked about, Mother's Day. We talked about the fact that lately there don't seem to be any church mothers anymore. And what does that mean? So now you don't have the church mother. That person's role is no longer there. And how does that affect the dynamics within the church and within the church family? The absenteeism of the mothers in the church. And there were a few things that came out of that, and I think it was really pivotal at that point when we kind of discussed that some of the mothers who some people may think, oh, well, this person should be, one of the mothers of the church, maybe they themselves were not even equipped enough or encouraged enough to feel that they could even step into those roles. And then we talked about mentorship and, what did that look like? What would you do? How would you sow into or pour into a young person? And we talked about fostering those relationships, bridging the gaps between, young people and older people in the church and seniors and, people who are middle-aged or Gen X versus Gen Y and I'm thinking the baby boomers and the silent generation. How do you gel all of that? So we went through that. We had some great conversation wrapped around both the Mother's Day and the Father's Day editions and episodes. And then we went into the summer months, and the Lord impressed upon me to have a young person. So I have a young person in my life who I call one of my little sisters. She's the youngest one of my spiritual little sisters. And she actually started this journey with me when the Lord was giving me these quotes. Before I had the book, I had a business where I was selling things with these spiritual quotes on T-shirts and tote bags. I had a Valentine's edition one time where I had quotes and sayings on teddy bears. And so she was right there with me at all of the bazaars and all of the places that I was taking this ministry to. And what happened during those times was not only was I able to sell, it was never about the money, but it was more about getting God's word out there, getting my testimony, my story of God's goodness and God's grace and mercy towards me out to the public. And so it was a way and a time of ministry. So every bazaar and function where we were selling these products, we would share a testimony with them. We would pray with them. We would talk to them because everybody is not in the church. And so they would ask, well, what does this quote mean? What are you saying? What does this mean? And it was opportunities for ministry. So I had Quiescence Hilliard on the show, and she talked about, have the young people been lost during the pandemic? So I'm talking about last summer, 2021. The pandemic was still roaring and raging, and she talked about, young Christian teenagers, in fact, how the pandemic was affecting them and how they were dealing with it, how they were coping with it. And she gave us some really, really good tips and methods. She talked about how she dealt with it, how she would pray, how she would, talk to her mother and her grandmother and her siblings, her aunts and her uncles, and ask them, how am I supposed to navigate through this? Still go to school, still possibly work, it's still summertime, and enjoy yourself in the middle of a pandemic, but you are a Christian teenager. So there are some things that the teenagers who are not Christian did not participate, you wouldn't participate in as a Christian youth. And we went through that. We had an excellent episode, and it was great just to have a young person on the radio. She was not actually able to physically be here because, again, I said it was kind of in the height of the pandemic, but I was able to do a Zoom with her, send the recording in, and we had those capabilities. And then we go into the fall. So fall, you think of schools back in session. And again, this was for the first time most of the schools were going back in person. And so we always want to, in this ministry, relate everything back to the church, to the gospel. And I had my best sister friend on the show, Tracy Williams, who came on and she talked to us about her movement that she has, and it's called Sunday School Teaching Techniques. There are a lot of literature and a lot of pamphlets and probably classes and things talking about Sunday school things, but there's really nothing out there about the actual techniques that the teachers need to use to administer, to be able to actually teach the students, young adults and children. So she has an entire movement and ministry dedicated to the actual techniques that you use for teaching Sunday school. So that was our September edition. We go over to October, and again, I'm doing a recap of this past year, so bear with me. I'm trying to remember as much as I can. I jotted down some notes, but we jump into October, and I had another sister friend on, Sister Deborah Sokot. She was on, and she talked about her ministry, which is Deborah's Daily Devotions, and she talked about her Facebook ministry, where she posts just encouraging things every single day. And she really believes in it, and it's actually helping people. It is helping people. People have reached out to her and say they wake up and they're looking for Deborah's Daily Devotions. And we also talked about single motherhood. She's a single mother. She's a Christian single mother. She also talked about some things that piggybacked onto the episodes we had in the spring with the Mother's and the Father's Day episodes. And she talked about being a single black mother during the pandemic and being Christian and all the things that went along with it and how she got through. And I remember we had quite a few callers that called in and talked to her and just, wanted her advice, but also to just commend her for continuing in that journey, for not giving up. She could have given up if she wanted to, but she didn't. We jumped to November, and we had, and I want to make sure that I don't mix this up. I know 1 month I was sick, so I want to say we jumped to, it was November I was sick. We jumped to December, and I had a good friend of mine, and Minister Frank is looking at me because I did not forget about getting you. I remember you were looking for a quote from Suzanne or something that she said that sparked something in him, and I didn't forget about that. I just need to go back and watch it. We had Positively Suzanne, my good friend, Minister Suzanne Graham Anderson, and she also has her podcast series. It's on iTunes and all of those platforms, and she talked to us about just her entire her website and her movement that is all wrapped around positivity. And it's Positively Suzanne, and she just talks about just navigating through life and how different it is when you put that positive spin on it. And that's how we ended the year 2021. Jumping to New Year's of 2022, so this was in January. Again, I did this episode on Zoom because the first Sunday in January was actually like the day after New Year's, so I knew it would be tough to get in. I feel like there was snow and there was a few different things happening, so it was impressed upon me to make sure that show was actually recorded on Zoom, and I had that sent into the station, and that was a really good way to kick off the year. We had members of clergy, we had laity, we had businessmen, businesswomen. We had a sister who is, and I don't want to use the word suffering because she is not suffering, but she is actually going through chemotherapy, and she's going through cancer. She gave her testimony. The pastors were on, my pastor was on, and his wife, and they talked about just, the encouragement of the saints and just how to navigate through life, and what we were going to do differently this year as opposed to any other year, and that was irregardless of the pandemic, but what God had specifically told each one of us to do, what word he had for this season. And we all talked about it. It was great dialogue. It was such a great way to kick off 2022. We're jumping to February. We had my good friend and brother Donald Smith on just this past month, and in honor of Black History Month, we did an edition on gospel music. and just how that shapes and forms so many people's lives, not only just in the church, but just on a daily basis. There are some people who did not grow up in a Christian home, but this music was played, maybe every Saturday when they were cleaning up the house, or, with your family, or maybe you went to church with your grandmother, or, an auntie or an uncle, but you heard this rich black gospel music. And Brother Donald shared with us how important it was. He shared his record collection with us. He showed us album covers that just sparked and evoked so much emotion in all of us. And it was just a great way to represent Black history. So again, anybody out there who's not shy, I keep saying that if you call in to 617-282-0685, there is something special for you that I plan on doing. And so right now I'm going to segue into my book again. And one of the things that Pastor Bruce Wall told me before I even started this show, we had a great Zoom. The two of us connected and we clicked and we talked about ministry and work and community. And one of the things he said to me was, you definitely, if you have a book or you have any literature or you have anything that you are about, make sure that you use your own platform to talk about the things that you're doing and the things that you have, because in order to do these types of things with other people, you would have to pay big money. You would have to beg them, maybe plead them. Oh, please, can you mention this? Can you mention that? And so I said, well, I'm going to go right back to that principle that Pastor Bruce Wall told me. And he also encouraged me that, a lot of the other shows here, this is what they do. And I'm looking at a wall of just beautiful literature and beautiful books that people have just poured out of their souls. And so I'm going to spend the remainder of the show, I'm going to pick just a few quotes from the book and just talk about them and just give you a refresher of where I've been. I can only talk about myself. I can't talk about anybody else because my testimony is not theirs. Their testimony is not mine. And one thing that I learned to do was a long time ago was just open up the book. There's 101 quotes in here. Each one of them will bless you, but the Lord directs me, just have fun with it. Open up the book and talk about something. So those of you who do have the book, this one is on page 47. And it was actually, I did a survey last year and found out that this was actually the most popular and favorite quote in my book. And it says, "You dropped me like a hot potato, but God picked me up and turned me into golden fries." Some of you may laugh. I chuckled too when God gave it to me, and I'm like, people are going to just laugh at it and they're not going to get it. But people actually do get it. And what that's saying, I believe we may have a caller. Oh, no problem. We will be taking the call. Thank you. Sure.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Dad.
This is your father.
Thank you so much.
I'll have to win the prize. I hear you talking.
Thank you.
How can you be talking and you're talking to me? How is that possible? Are you playing a tape back?
No. Are you hearing me?
I'm watching it. It's on the big computer.
Okay. So, yep. So everybody hears. We hear you. So the whole radio land hears you.
Oh.
So you can definitely go ahead and talk.
Okay. This is your father. I'm very. I can't say proud because I don't use the word proud. I'm certainly very pleased, well pleased with a daughter who is doing big things and great things for the Lord. So I just wanted to call in. Mom is here. We're watching you, and we're just enjoying the program. And
Thank you.
It's amazing. 1 year has passed. Amazing. I just want to say that keep on and keeping on, and you're laughing.
I'm just laughing to keep from crying because I have tears in my eyes. So.
What's that? You have something in your eyes?
I have tears in my eyes because it was so beautiful what you said.
Oh.
Appreciate it.
That's good. You have tears because your dad called and your mom was watching also. Keep on, and I'm just enjoying it, and I hope to continue watching, and we're excited about it. It's unbelievable to me, though. I'm just sitting here thinking that this little baby that was born in 1973, which was yesterday was 49 years.
Yep.
49 years ago. Who would have thought that 49 years ago that I have a child that would be doing all these things. God bless you. Keep on doing for the Lord. And God is continually blessing you. I can see the blessing on you.
Thank you, Dad. I love you.
Blessings are ahead of you. You know, you're
I love you very much. And,
love you very much.
And I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. I love you all dearly. My two favorite people in the world.
Yep. You are a favorite. I'm excited.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the show.
Thank you so much. You'll still get the prize.
All right, that's great. That's what we want to do. You know we're behind you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I love you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll try.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. If no one supports me, those two do. If nobody in the world supports me, those two do. So now they just messed me up. And now I'll wipe the tears. And I will try to talk about, but I just want to, again, I have to pause for those two because they have been there through thick, thin, middle, a little bit thick, a little bit thin for me in my life from the day I was born. And I just want to commend them and just let them know that they know they always have my full support. Two of the most anointed and talented people that I know that would just go, through the roof for anybody, would give you the shirt off their back. They would go cold. They would go hungry to make sure that not only me, but the world would be able to benefit. And I've watched them do it. I've watched them give things that they didn't have because they just did not want to see someone without. So again, I want to thank them and bless them forever in godly debt to them. So we were talking about, you dropped me like a hot potato, but God picked me up and turned me into golden fries. And a lot of the quotes that the Lord gave me, like I said, between 2012 and 2019, and he still gives them to me. I have probably 100 more since then, was the fact that, you can really be feeling, just because you're a saint, just because you're saved, you're a Christian, you're walking with the Lord, does not mean that you are not going to have a bad day. You're not going to feel rotten sometimes. You're not going to feel kind of at the bottom. And a lot of times, people, whether they want to or not, whether it's conscious or not, whether they intend to, a lot of times people say, well, that wasn't my intention. But it doesn't mean that you still didn't feel a certain way. And so when God gave me you dropped me like a hot potato, but God picked me up and turned me into golden fries, was the fact that somebody could have dropped you. It could be, and not physical. Maybe somebody was dropped. Not really physical, but that, somebody may have been in your life. And maybe they've been in your life for a long time, a short time. I'm not sure. But it may have been somebody who meant a lot to you. You may have had some regard for the relationship that maybe they just didn't hold and they just didn't have. Or maybe they didn't have the capacity to have the regard and the respect for the friendship or the relationship that you had. However that is, or whatever that looked like for you, that could have made you feel so low, so bad, could have put you into depression because this person who was once walking with you is no longer there for whatever reason. Could be that they thought that you said something that you didn't say, and they just totally walked out of your life and they left you, and you just felt like dropped. They talk about that game, Hot Potato. I used to play it a little bit when I was young, and it would be like you'd pass this thing and it was so hot you just wanted to get rid of it, and you just dropped the person and the person's spirit. You just felt like the rug was lifted up from under them, and like the floor just opened up, bottom opened up, and you just went through. But remember that when you did go through, and when you did drop to the floor, and maybe you dropped to the floor and you hit your head or you hurt your back because somebody dropped you and left you, and they just went like that and just could care less about you. God was there to pick you up. And on the other side, a potato can be French fries, golden fries, some nice fries. I'm not talking about old soggy fries or the fries that were under the lamp at McDonald's or somewhere and they're all crunchy and crusty and they would break your teeth. Those are not the fries I'm talking about. I'm talking about golden fries that you bite into. They melt in your mouth. They're still hot. And that's only something that God can do. Sometimes the way that God gives it to me, sometimes it's comical. A lot of times it's an illustration because I am an artist as well. So he gives it to me pictorially. And I could just see somebody being dropped like the hot potato, but God flipping it. And the ministry that he's given me is to, turn the negative into a positive. I don't care how negative it is. I don't care how bad it looks. There is always, they talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. There's always the light at the end of the tunnel. Try as much as you can, as much as God gives you grace to see the glass half full, not half empty. So that was one of the quotes I figured we would talk about today. The next one is on page 66, if you do have the book. And it says, love never stops. It starts with God. And that one was dealing with, and again, I always say that the reason why, I'll even show you some of the pages from the book, how it looks. I purposely have the pages so that there's a lot of space above and below the quotes, so you can, if you want to jot notes or you want to write down what it means to you. A couple people had said to me, maybe you should put lines under it. And I said, I don't want to put lines under it because that's forcing somebody to have a certain thought about it, and it's making them write. Maybe they don't want to write. Maybe they just want to look at it and see what they want. And I didn't want the lines because maybe it was not something perfect that you could fit into lines. Maybe they wanted to write around it or above it or jot notes or maybe make pictures. I understand that because being an artist, my mom laughs at me sometimes because I usually don't like notebooks that have lines on them. I used one today. You do have to use, notebooks that have lines on them. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But being an artist, sometimes I don't like the lines because they constrict me and they constrict my thinking just because I am so visual. And I don't want to necessarily have to stay in those lines. Maybe I want to make a circle. Maybe I want to make a curve. And maybe it doesn't fit into those lines. And so a lot of things in my life I've found and learned that it's okay not to fit into the mold, not to be just, like everybody else. We're not robots, and so everybody and each one of us is uniquely different in some type of way, and it should be celebrated. It shouldn't be tolerated. It should be celebrated. Let's celebrate the differences. And so this one says, again, love never stops. It starts with God. And that was a point in my life where I felt like, hey, maybe someone in your life, you feel like the love just stopped. They used to love you. They acted like they loved you. They did things that made you think they loved you. They maybe even told you that they loved you, but all of a sudden it seems like it just stopped. It disappeared. They're no longer doing those things. They're no longer saying those things. They're no longer maybe coming around. Maybe love to you is the fact that they showed up. A love to you is the fact that maybe they bought you things, or maybe they took you places, or they cared for you, or you were sick and they showed up with the chicken soup, and they showed up with groceries, or even during the pandemic, maybe they dropped groceries at your door, and they couldn't come in and see you, but they dropped food to you. They reached out to you. They called you. They texted you, or maybe they emailed you, and they were doing all these things that to you were love, but all of a sudden it disappeared, vanished. You don't hear from them. You text them, you call them, crickets, as my friends and I say. Sometimes if we don't get emails from work for like an hour and we go, crickets, and you hear the chirp, 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 and maybe that happened to you. But what God told me, and it's happened to me several times, and what God told me was, don't worry about the fact that the love stopped from someone, or you feel that some type of love stopped, but remember that it starts with Him. Love doesn't stop, but it starts with God. And if you go back to your first love, which is God, and they always talk about go back to your first love. If you go back to your first love, you can't lose, because love started with Him. So how could it ever stop? It doesn't stop. And what I'm trying to get people to realize, and myself included, is that because a person stopped showing their love, or stopped, love is a demonstration, so it's an action word. So if a person, for whatever reason, stops showing their love, remember that love starts with God. It starts with Him. He first loved us. So if it's something that God is doing to us and that He's admonishing us to do, and it's something that He's showing to us, and He's put His love in our hearts, it can never stop. It only starts with Him. The next one, in our few minutes here, we have about 14 minutes, I believe, left or so. It says, don't let someone else's nightmare frighten the dream out of you. And that's another one that's really popular. I've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of good feedback about that. And this comes from, talking to everybody and their uncle about something that the Lord maybe laid on your heart, maybe a vision or a dream that He gave you. And we get excited. I do it. And you run and you tell everybody, God told me this. He showed me this. He said, I'm going to be this, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to have maybe this business, and this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And you're all excited. You're happy. You're ready to go. But someone else says, I had that dream too, and it was terrible. It was a nightmare for me. Don't do it. Don't dream. And just because it was a nightmare for them doesn't mean it's a nightmare for you. It does not mean that just because it was horrible for them, and maybe it was, and I feel for them, and you can feel for them too, but their nightmare does not have to be your dream. Your dream does not have to turn into someone else's nightmare. You cannot let someone else's nightmare frighten the dream out of you. That basically is saying that this other person, or whoever, it could be, multiple people that are just telling you, you can't do it, don't do it, you shouldn't do it, I don't think it's going to work out, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Be wary of people that are always saying, I wouldn't do this and that if I were you, because they're not you. At the end of the day, they're not you. And half the time when people say that, what they tell you they wouldn't do, they would do. They just don't want you to do it because they haven't done it yet. So be wary of people. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do this. That whole advice thing, because maybe it didn't work out for them, and maybe they're frightened because they tried something and it didn't work. They tried something and it failed. We've all failed at something. I'm very candid about, I've probably shared it on the show before. In my past career, there were 2 tests that I had to take, and I was supposed to take these 2 tests. One was in a different discipline. I'm in the architecture and construction field. One was in a different discipline, but it was the same accreditation, put it that way. I failed both of them. I can sit here in 2022 without crying and getting upset and tell you I failed both of those tests. But did I say that I will never work again? I will never do anything again. I will just go and sit on the side of the road because I failed those 2 tests. I didn't. I was upset at the time. I was hurt. I was embarrassed, because I felt like everybody else passed the test, but I found out other people had taken the test multiple times. So I didn't take the same test multiple times. I took 2 different, 2 different disciplines, and I failed both of them. But I can look back on it now and say I probably wouldn't fail them now. I needed to study differently, didn't know. It was very overwhelming. I wasn't, it was almost like I was set up to fail at the time. I recognize that now. I didn't recognize it then. It was like a, self-taught test. You're supposed to read, a pile of books this thick, and all of a sudden just go in and know these answers, like that. And when come to find out, they realized in later years after I had failed the test that it was a test that was just too hard to expect anybody to remember any of that material like that. But again, I couldn't let my own nightmare frighten me from stepping out and doing anything ever again. And that's another thing that I can add to my own book, is not necessarily don't let someone else's nightmare frighten the dream out of you. Don't let your own nightmare frighten the dream out of you. We've all had things that have happened to us that we have failed miserably at relationships with people, failed miserably with our relationship with God, failed miserably at a lot of things, but it doesn't give us the excuse or the right to say, I'm not going to try that again. 1 strike, I'm out. I did that already, been there, done that. I don't want to hurt myself. That doesn't apply in the body of Christ. God has given us the strength. He has equipped us. They always say he doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And that is just something that God just dropped that in my spirit today. Had no plans on saying it, but someone needs to hear it. And like I said, even if you're not listening right now, if you happen to play this later on in life, later on in the year, just remember that no one else's nightmare or your own nightmare should frighten you from trying again, from getting up and doing it again, from being there. Be a better friend. Be a better parent. Be a better child. Be a better Sunday school teacher. Be a better minister. And when we talk about ministry, people immediately, when you say the word minister, they picture you in a collar and they picture you behind a pulpit screaming and shouting. That's a minister. It's not. A minister is simply someone who is called to serve. They're not supposed to be serving us. We're supposed to be serving the people because God has called us and equipped us to do that. Don't know why I went off on that subject, but that's what God gave me. That's what he gave me. I will do a few more. And this one kind of relates back to another one. It's kind of an adaptation. God's love is right even if someone left. And again, it's back to, you cannot say that God's love doesn't exist. God's love is right. God's love is good. God's love is kind. God's love is generous. And just because someone left has nothing to do with God's love. It has nothing to do with God's love at all. Another one, God's not punishing you. He's polishing you. He's not punishing you. We feel a lot of times that we didn't get something, we didn't get to reach a certain level somewhere, or we didn't attain something because we're being punished. Well, he gave it to her. She's not half as good as me. I must have done something wrong. I must be being punished. You know, when you're punished on the judicial level, you could go to jail, you could do time. All these different things happen to you, and you say, "Well, I'm being punished. I'm being put in the timeout corner. I'm being put in the corner." Or, you know, back in the day when they would give you the ruler in your hand, and all these things. I'm being punished. I'm being blackballed from this, and this door is closing, and I must have done something wrong. You start backpedaling, and you start digging down into your life, and you dig down and you try to figure out, what did I do wrong? You cry out to God, why are you punishing me? You know, why haven't you given me that spouse? Or why have you given me that spouse? there's two sides. Why haven't you given me the spouse? And why have you given me the spouse? And you're saying, I must be punished. You must be punishing me. But God is never punishing like that. He is polishing you. He's polishing you. When you have old silverware and you keep rubbing at it, and you use, they have different cleaners, and they have different cloths and things that you use. You're polishing it, and you're rubbing it, stroking it back and forth, up and down, and circles and counterclockwise, and whatever you're doing, because you want it to shine. You want it to shine. And in order for it to shine, you have to go through some ugly, yucky, dirty stuff for things to shine. You have to polish, and again, you have to rub and stroke. And that's what God is telling us in the Spirit. He's stroking you. He's rubbing you. He's doing this. He's doing counterclockwise, because he's working something greater out in you. And he's trying to get you to shine. God wants us to shine. God wants us to shine. He does not want any dull, worn out anything in his kingdom. How is that going to help? How are you going to be a witness if you're not shining? And you're dull, and you're gray, and you just look like weathered and whipped. No one's going to look at you. How are you going to be a good witness if you're not shining for him? And I'm not talking about you shining of your own will, but you want to shine the way God has polished you to shine. You will shine in such a different way when it's not something that you did yourself. I am going to close out on that one. We will save a few. Minister Frank, I'm not sure if anyone was able to write in or anything. If not, it's okay. We are going to pause. Again, I would like to give a shout out and thank you to Nick Ferron, Minister Nick Ferron Music, who has a gospel reggae ministry out of Worcester, Massachusetts. He was our sponsor for today's show, and I want to thank him, and I want to encourage you. I will read his information again so that you may check him out. You can find him as N Ferron, and that's spelled capital N, capital F, EARON on YouTube. And on Instagram, he is N Ferron Music Official. So that's the @ symbol for Instagram, NFEARONMUSICOFFICIAL, and that is on Instagram. Again, I am your host, Kimberly J. Oliver, and you have just listened to the year anniversary episode of the KIMPOWERMENT radio show, and I will see you again in April. God bless.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with Memo. We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, for all your mortgage needs. All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with Memo.
Welcome to Empowerment. best in you.